back?
I think we're all back.
Looks good. All right.
Yeah, we're all back.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Good to see everyone. Seeing some, old but familiar faces. Todd, good to see you. Arthur, thanks for being here. Now is the part of the call where we usually have folks who are new to the community or haven't been on in a little while to shortly introduce themselves, give your 30 second elevator pitch. Is anyone new to the call or hasn't been on in a little while and you want to say a quick hey? Courtney?
My name is,
Oh, I'm sorry. Courtney and then Brian. Sorry about that.
Hi everyone. I'm Courtney Graham. I'm the Chief People Officer at a company called Scaled Agile. We're located in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome, Courtney. Thanks. Brian Watson.
Yeah, Brian Watson. I work with Adobe in marketing, trying to run and kind of build up our freelancer program, et cetera. It's been a wild ride, been doing this for a while, and love to meet fellow people. I tell my wife I found my tribe here, so this is really cool.
I feel the same.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone else? And if you don't want to say, hey, you can always put your LinkedIn or your contact information in the chat too. We can connect with you that way.
Yeah, by all means. And if anybody has any updates or webinars coming up or anything like that, you could mention it now or drop it in the chat. Happy to share it out with our community. So feel free to do so.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. All right, well, let's just dive right in. So it's always a treat when Jerry Wynn sits down with us. For those of you who don't know him, you should. He's a true legend when it comes to all things marketing and business strategy, creativity, and innovation. He's a longstanding professor of marketing at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He's also an active researcher with a doctorate from Stanford. He's authored, co-authored, edited at least 30 books that we know of, and I think he's working on his 31st. So today he'll be sharing with us his insights and his research on AI for customer engagement. Just in the last few weeks, we've seen the next generation of Meta's open source large language models with Llama 2. We've also seen its competition come to the market. So Jerry will be walking us through how AI and generative AI and LLMs are influencing the spaces we play in. So Jerry, we're so glad to have you back. Let's dive in.
Thanks, Ashley. I really appreciate it. You want to share my presentation? Can you see the presentation?
Great.
Great. So thanks for inviting me and thanks for this wonderful presentation. What I would like to discuss with you is an issue which just came out. The actual volume came out yesterday in print and digitally about 2 weeks ago, and I believe that you all received a digital link to it. And the motivation for this was to try to focus both industry and academic attention on what I believe is a really important topic, which is the use of AI for customer or human engagement in general. How many of you, just if you can kind of let us know on the chat, how many of you have used AI to enhance consumers or other stakeholders' engagement? Can we see kind of a response to this? We can signal so we'll get a feel for this. Because to me, that's an important area and an area that to some extent has been ignored in the general kind of discussion of AI in the last few years. So the process we went about was I invited 2 other people to join me as co-editors. Jerry Dickler from who is in charge of Google Ads from Google, and Margarita Pagani, who is a professor of digital and artificial intelligence at Schema in Paris. They put together an amazing advisory board you can see in front of us here. And we had a call for papers and encouraged every one of our advisory board to invite their network. And we got a lot of papers. We went through a review process and editing, and the final output is we have this issue. The contributors were both from industry and academia. You can get a feel for companies ranging all the way from Alibaba, IBM, Infosys, MasterCard, National Healthcare Group in Singapore, which contributed a lot to the issue, and numerous universities, Wharton, Harvard, NYU, Singapore Amendment or University, and others. The key to the topic as it relates to the Open Assembly community is really to think about what we've been trying to do here in the Open Assembly for at least the years I've been involved with you guys, is to expand the focus on talent from, on the left side here, from internal workforce to think about open talent and how do you leverage it. And it seems to me that there is a new paradigm that we have all to start thinking about, and that's on the right side, to add to the internal and open talent to add digital talent. And in addition to this, on the bottom side of the chart, to make sure that each one of them, each one of the talents we are employing, is you're going to use AI to enhance their own capabilities, because AI is the most powerful tool that we have seen in years, both in terms of efficiency, in terms of enhanced creativity, and all other areas. So it's really a new paradigm, and I thought it's really important when we discussed with John Windsor and Brandon and Ashley the topic really for this community to start realizing that we have to augment what we're doing. We're not doing it already, by start introducing both realizing the importance of digital talent and some amazing examples for this. If you think about one of the papers in the issue we have is from Amelia, which is the most advanced conversational AI. And what they're doing, Amelia provides substitutes to traditional outsourcing of call centers and others in a way that no one could even imagine. She's getting better participation, better engagement. People love to interact with her, and the results are amazing. An example, there was a law firm in Atlanta in the personal injury area that is using Amelia, and it increased their response to telephones, people calling in, from 30% to like almost 100%. But the more significant thing, she is so effective by showing affection and understanding and getting all the needed information from the people who call in, that she can sign the customers actually on the contract, and then to set an appointment for them with the lawyers the next morning to try to work with it. Amazing capabilities. So we really have to start thinking about now, not only in terms of our model, which is internal workforce and open talent, but how do we augment it with digital talent, and how do we enhance each one of our talent pool people with AI capabilities. The issue itself, which you have a link to and which is here, well, we have an introduction that describes what we're trying to do, and we divided it into the papers and some book reviews we have into 5 sections, papers on personalization, automation, predictions, customer insights, and omni-channel. And we ended this with a summary of a workshop we ran last July with many of the authors and many CMOs from the ANA CMO Growth Council, focusing on scenarios for the future of AI for customer engagement, and primarily focusing on what will be the scenario by 2027. And we report on the optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely scenario as seen by them. So that's the issue. Let me open it here for those of you who had a chance to look and the issue, or ideally read even some of this. If you have any kind of key takeaway from your reading, would love to hear it. Can we see a show of hands? Can we turn the mic to whoever would like to share their insights?
Maybe no one did their homework, Jerry. Link.
Yeah, so on like page 159 and 160, it talks about the differences between like the downside, the pessimistic view and the optimistic view.
Right.
And so my question is more, and I find that it wasn't very like direct, like displaces workers, right? It talks about how it could potentially lead to things in the pessimistic view and then very much the optimistic view. But I'm wondering if there's that gray area in the middle where things that might happen that or thoughts that you might have in that middle ground that's not necessarily pessimistic or optimistic, but it might be a challenge that we face in navigating that with the implementation of AI in the future.
A great point, because the conclusion of the workshop was the future is really going to be a combination of the two. It's not going to be either or. It's not going to be doomsday. It's not going to be the panacea of all time. It's going to be a combination of the two. And the challenge is exactly your point. How do you navigate it? How do we come up with this? And not to start looking at kind of digital or the AI, the digital AI agent versus the human. It's not either or, it's actually the end. The key is the end. So if we start thinking about the whole AI, it's the greatest tool we've ever had. Kind of if you think about tools over the decades, a pen, a typewriter, a calculator, a car, the smartphone. But the real development now is AI is taking it to the next level, especially with the combination of things such as generative AI as well as conversational AI. So it's up to us, the creative integration of the two. So it's really a great point. Any other thoughts? Okay, if not, let me proceed. So what I did is I asked a few people to give me, I told them about the session, and I said, okay, share your experience, kind of what you took out of the issue. And the first person I asked was, I had two copy editors that worked on the issue with me. One was Deborah Yao, who's editor of AI Business, which is an interesting publication, those who are interested in this area. And she did the copy editing class, and she suggested three things. AI is ushering a new renaissance in customer engagement where hyper-personalization will become the norm. AI is enabling much better patient care with implication for human longevity. And there are two amazing papers in the issue. One of them, the experience of Singapore, which incidentally is one of the most advanced countries and places in the utilization of AI driven by the government. And we have two papers from Singapore. One is summary of 6 different applications in different areas, and one just focused on healthcare. And then there's another interesting paper by Mukul Pandya, who actually was the second person, I'll share his insight on this, who suffered a stroke about a year ago. And the way he described in the paper how he used AI to recover out of the stroke and go back to normal life. It's an amazing, touchy story of the capability of AI to really restore kind of viability of the person. And Deborah's third suggestion, kind of as a major takeaway, was AI amplifies the efforts of human workers, allowing companies to scale their activities significantly. When I asked Mukul Pandya, I mentioned him before, which was the founding editor of Knowledge at Wharton. His view is that AI will increase the accuracy and lower the cost of making predictions based on data. It will enhance customer engagement by enabling immersive and impactful experiences. It will help companies to make more effective use of data to increase customer engagement. I obviously asked my two co-authors, co-editors for their impression, and Jerry Dickler, who is in charge of Google Ed, said AI can improve customer outcomes at scale. The special issue demonstrates this across a wide variety of industries. AI drives business growth. The issues shows how AI has become a critical capability in sales and marketing, and that the impact of AI extends far beyond traditional technology-driven businesses, with examples ranging from healthcare to classical music to special issue provides motivation for all businesses to consider leveraging AI. Some of the music examples we are in the issue are amazing. For example, using AI to try to, based on listening to a musical repertoire of a person, to predict what will be the next music invention of this person based on the history of the music.
Wow.
And the future music generated by AI is so amazing that fans of the musician that they're trying to do cannot tell the difference between the original and the one generated by AI. So I think some really amazing examples. The last kind of insight I want to share with you is by Margarita Pagani, who I mentioned is a professor of AI at Schema, who says, redefine consumer experience through AI systems. AI systems are revolutionizing the consumer experience by introducing a new paradigm of experiential engagement. A focus on hyper-personalization, which enabled by AI. Special issue emphasizes the enormous potential in generating hyper-personalization for customer engagement, and new management skills for generative AI in customer interaction. And then what I thought I'll share with you very briefly, 4 of the many studies. We have about 30 different studies in the issue. One of them is MasterCard, which is an amazing real-time engine. They have the MasterCard digital engine that matches consumers' passions and desires with micro-trends instantly delivered as personalized message suited to the context. And when you think about this, if you make for example, a reservation on American Airlines flying to San Francisco from wherever you are, they have, because if they're using MasterCard for this, they have full information of exactly what you like. You like some boutique hotel, you like Chinese restaurant, you like art. And the minute you book the ticket, they can tell you that there is a new boutique hotel. Would you like us to make a reservation for you? There is a great new restaurant in that you may like. And so in real time, they provide basically the offer for you of the next set of services. And then many, many other examples. They're really doing some amazing work. Another interesting example is a paper by Alibaba that focuses their AI-based service that provides automated and interactive customer service dispute resolution. And they claim that they achieved at least 25% increase in customer satisfaction due to this AI dispute resolution system, totally automated. Another amazing example is a paper by Chetan Dubey on AI plus human is the essential formula for customer engagement. The example I gave you before about the Atlanta law firm that uses AI, the conversational AI, to improve their services is by his firm. And AI systems and humans must work together as a cohesive team to create personalized user engagement and customer support. And I think that's really one of the key messages of the issue, as well as a lot of the work that's going on now in terms of human-centric AI. And I think the challenge to the community, to the open assembly community is really, how do you, because you don't really have control over all the talent you pull together as open talent, how do you encourage their use of AI, and how do you start integrating AI together with the open talent? Because that's really a unique challenge for this group and how to deal with this. And as soon as I finish this brief presentation, I think really will be productive to try to spend some time discussing how can you do it, and kind of in addition to kind of your general reaction to the topic. And the one that I mentioned before about the after the stroke is the paper by Mukul Pandya, which I highly recommend in terms of the huge capabilities of many, many aspects of AI to try to truly help recover. And the guy is doing amazingly well after a stroke because of AI. So given all this, what I would love to do is open it for discussion in terms of, one, what are the implications that you see from AI for customer engagement? And hopefully the brief discussion here will stimulate you to read some of the paper in the issue. But then ideally, especially given the nature of the group, if we can discuss what are some of the implications to the Open Assembly community. Let me turn it to you guys.
Yes, San, I think you had your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I heard this definition yesterday. It was sort of the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur. An employee is, I think the definition was component labor, but essentially, they think of themselves as a component of the solution, versus the entrepreneur tries to think of the whole solution and then find resources to deliver that. And listening to you speak, it really feels like AI is sort of a journey from employee to entrepreneur, because it allows you to build a greater part of the solution. My question is, and it may be unwarranted, but my question is, if we're all using the same AI, do we all start thinking about the same way, essentially? Do we all start thinking of the same solution? And what's the roadmap to essentially to personal AI, to an AI that I could adopt entirely to my own creative process, my own creative thinking, even my own creative work to date?
I think it's a great question. Let me try to give you an example from a different area and then come back to your kind of critical question. So in the education field, there have been a lot of concern about it and a lot of dumb moves. So the Department of Education of New York City, for example, banned the use of ChatGPT by students because they'll cheat. To me, that's the dumbest possible thing. Like saying you're not allowed to use your phone, not allowed to use calculator. It's a new tool. So my suggestion for this is, which has been adopted now by a number of places, is very simple. Every exam should start by saying, use one of the generative AI platform, ChatGPT, GPT-4, you name it, whatever you want to use, and show us what is the prompt to answer the question, and show us in quote the results you got from ChatGPT. That's the beginning. You're being evaluated on your critical thinking, on your evaluation of this, and on your ability to improve it. So what are we doing? We're evaluating our students. It's two things we want to accomplish. We want to accomplish critical thinking and creative thinking. So we're evaluating on this, and we just use the tool as a way of starting. So I think the personalization is, again, depending. We're dealing with a huge heterogeneity of people. If you have the talent to develop your own AI platform, to modify what it is, it's great. But I'll show you a simple example. I gave a talk, like 2 weeks ago, that I was asked to a group of CEOs on innovation, AI, and marketing, and the future of marketing. And I wanted to end the discussion with an example. So I used ChatGPT to write a poem on innovation, AI, and the future of marketing. I'm not very good at writing poems. Would have taken me a day, 2 days to try to write it. Took me 10 minutes with about 3 different prompts with few changes here and there, and I came with an amazing poem as a result of this. The result is totally me. The prompt I used, the way I changed it, the way I modified it, took me 10 minutes compared to 2 days, and I'm not sure that even after 2 days I would have been able to come with the same quality. That's the personalization. That's the way you can use it. So there are such rich and amazing platforms today in the generative AI area that I think every one of us, whatever we do, we can improve on it by using it, start it, and then play with it. And if you're really one of the geniuses that can create a new platform, go ahead and do it and improve on GPT-4 and the like. Incidentally, the rate of improvement is beyond description. My understanding is GPT-3 ran basically the bar exams, and the results were they ended up at the bottom 10% of the class. GPT-4, one generation from GPT-3 to 4, the same bar exam, they ended up at the top 90% of the class. one generation. So the developments are absolutely amazing. I don't think anyone today can ignore it. The same way we cannot ignore a pen or a computer or the smartphone. AI should become an integral part of everything we do, and we should start customizing and leveraging. Any other kind of thought, especially on the last point of the bridging of how do you really bridge, the doomsday scenarios with the optimistic scenarios, and how do you create a better world for everyone?
Yeah, Todd, you had your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ashley. Thank you, Professor. My question in short is, do you think generative AI and machine learning will have a downward pressure on the open talent workforce? And I'm an optimist on this, by the way.
I think it depends on to what extent open talent will start adapting them. If the open talent will be what I suggested at the bottom part of my screen before, which is a combination of open talent will start using AI, no, this will just enhance their value, their creativity, their productivity, their ability to do things. If the open talent will just say, well, I'm just great at what I'm doing and I'll just continue this and AI is not for me, then they're doomed. Well, I think it depends on them.
Here's the prediction. And as an example, if to what you were saying before about the exponential capabilities, how do individuals 10x their capabilities? Organizations can also 10x their capabilities with their current workforce.
Right.
If that's true, then all of a sudden the brand, for example, if we're in a marketing universe, they no longer need as many people. They no longer need freelancers. They no longer need their advertising agencies. So all of a sudden, the entire internal brand department with AI can remove the need for much of, not all of the tasks and jobs that the agencies do. And as an open talent person, as an individual with that specific expertise, they're no longer needed. So that's a potential downward pressure on the workforce.
Right, and the alternative to this would be if everyone will use AI, the internal talent, the open talent, and will augment the internal open talent also with digital talent. If everyone will start using AI effectively, then we'll have a new reality, we'll have a new mix. And the open talent survival in this case will be only to the extent that they'll be able to realize that we're dealing with a different environment, different context, and how do they offer value in this environment? Because everyone else can use the same thing. So I think it will put pressure on the open talent to up their game. They'll have to start playing better. They'll have to use AI smarter, more creatively, and offer their value adds to the current internal talent and the digital talent, which is becoming their competition. That's the reason I thought that this session with you guys is so important, because you're kind of at the hub of the open talent community and movement. And the future of this, before it was simple, we can do 10x compared to you doing it internally. But now, as you just said, we can do the 10x internally if we use AI.
And which leads to a quote from Karim Lakhani from Harvard: the cost of creativity and cognition is dropping to zero. So if that's the case, we no longer need freelancers.
You see, I would disagree with this quote.
Okay.
I would disagree. Please. I think that AI will enhance creativity. AI will enhance creativity.
Absolutely. But the cost of doing so is going to go to zero.
That's true. The cost will go down, but
that's what he said.
AI role will be to enhance creativity.
That's right. But the cost for a brand, the cost for the C-suite, is the idea, is going to go towards zero. In other words, you're going to start to see a bunch of startup unicorns that have 3 to 5 people of staff and all AI.
Well,
I'm
not sure we're getting to this extreme, because I think that the combination of the human creativity and AI will dominate any AI by itself. So you need the combination. It's really the human plus the AI that will lead to this amazing, kind of improvement in creativity and in productivity.
Thank you.
Any other reactions?
Yeah, Sean and then Brian.
Yeah,
I think the interesting, talking about the implication here is that, and it sort of rounds out the ecosystem, is that getting workforce ecosystems, getting freelance talent, open talent in enterprise organizations has been met with a lot of resistance inside those enterprise organizations because it's different. There's friction between the way they do things today and the way they would need to do things when working in the open talent world. I think using AI gives you a tremendous chance to quickly reduce that friction and make that experience for those enterprise organizations as similar to what they're doing today as possible, which I think will help increase adoption. It goes back to what Balaji said at one time, until your solution has no more friction than the next easiest alternative, it's not going to get adopted. So I think AI offers a tremendous opportunity to reduce that friction in the client interaction.
It's a great point. If you go back to my 3 Venn diagrams, the internal, the open, and the digital talent, and then each one of them augmented and supported by AI, I think this new reality of the balance of these 3 really requires a new way of thinking about the transformation. So the new kind of more innovative way of thinking about how do I transform my current organization to this new reality is what will achieve the objective you just described.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Brian?
I think this is such an interesting discussion, and one that we could probably spend hours on. But I think that a couple things are going to happen. I think there will definitely be displacement. I think a lot of the jobs, there will be a shrinking in demand, but also an increase in other areas. I don't think anybody here can disagree that 20 years ago there wasn't a single job related to the internet, right, that we could point to. And so, and obviously it dominates almost every element of our experience. So I expect the same sorts of transformations, which unfortunately will leave some people and industries behind. That's just going to be a fact. And the definition will be that people will be forced in some way, shape, or form to make that choice between, do I need a person or do I need a bot, or do I need an artificial intelligence or a cognitive resource? The thing that I think is really an interesting, I think, future, if you game this out, is that we will see the importance of interpersonal communications, creativity, and higher order thinking skills, which come from the arts and the like, which heretofore have been kind of devaluated in favor of STEM careers and STEM educations. Things in my mind that I think, the kind of like the reliance on, like if my son was 16 right now, I'd say, don't go to college, learn trade, because you're not going to replace a plumber with AI, and you're not going to get and so that's, the future is going to belong to people who work with their hands, skills and trades that need to be developed because there's such tremendous demand. And then additionally, what I think is hiring is going to be incredibly complicated. And the reason why it's going to be complicated is because I have a need. I don't know how to articulate that need. So I enter my job requirements into an AI that writes a job description. That gets distributed. The candidate then sees that job description, takes that job description, spits it into his own AI to write his job response, his resume, and his cover letter, specifically targeted to respond to that need. How are you going to, as enterprise, hire at scale when all you're doing is having 2 different versions of robots talk to each other? And so I think that sort of, to me, highlights a real challenge that is going to, in many ways, re-emphasize the very necessary and human requirement for a person to talk to another person, which heretofore has been something that people try not to do. I just think that's an interesting challenge. I was talking to a CEO at a conference just last night, and he was lamenting that very same fact. And I don't think people think in those particular terms. Anyway, it wasn't really a question, much more of a conversation or kind of a point that disruption is bigger than people anticipate. And it's going to make a lot of things important again that for the past several years, society hasn't valued equivalently.
I fully agree, but let me suggest 2 minor modifications. One is you started by saying would be a person versus or a bot. I think there's a third option, which is a person who is empowered by a bot, who basically empowered by AI. And
Yes.
that's what we should look for. So I think the disruption, the survivors of this disruption are going to be those individuals who can integrate and leverage the AI capability to enrich themselves, to be more creative, more efficient, and more, can basically achieve more and could create more value. And the comment on the STEM is interesting. The shift there, which it's interesting, and not everyone recognizes this. Unfortunately, in our educational system, it's not recognized enough as in some other countries, is the shift from STEM to STEAM by adding the A of the art. So you need the STEM plus the art is the capability, because you need the creativity to think differently, the liberal art perspective and the like. So I think it's going to be, as you said, a huge disruption. But let's say, if we look at ourselves here as the open talent community, have responsibility to try to alert the members of this community of the huge opportunities if they will adopt AI to try to enhance what they're doing as opposed to fight it. Fighting it does not make any sense.
I have another comment that I think I just want to touch upon, and it's like more like a call to action, which is the one thing that I love about these evolving technologies, it allows individuals to punch above their weight. What does that mean? That means that as an individual, as a small business, I have resources and relative with actually infinitesimal expenses that allow me to present myself as a much larger organization. And there's a couple of things that I think are amazing as a business owner to experiment and explore and be a part of creation. But also it creates a lot of challenges in capital markets, because what we value and what we invest, it gets thrown on its head. And the common metrics that we think about where those elements of value are, where hedge funds and how they evaluate performance, that's changing. I have on my whiteboard, my top secret whiteboard, I have a model to build $1 billion company of one. And that's a thought experiment that I have when I sit around and I drink a glass of wine and I'm staring at my wall. What is the $1 billion company of one? And for the first time, that's not a crazy idea. That's
I think it's feasible. It's basically because we talked about the virtual organization for a long time, and increasing number. I operate a virtual organization. Basically, I have one person work with me, and everything else is outsiders who are part of the network. But with the capability of AI, I think your vision of $1 billion company for a person of one is feasible. It's attainable.
And that's mark my words. That's my plan, everybody.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, if any of you haven't already read it, I think Paul Jarvis, A Company of One, is a step in the right direction. Steve Rader, are you still on? You had a comment about work to mention that you did in the chat. Are you here? Yeah, go ahead. And then San.
No, I mean, there's a lot of studies that say that there's still a lot of work being generated by all this new stuff. Whenever we get folks that can do things for less, yes, in that particular locality, we use fewer people and people get laid off. But in the bigger scope of things, we do more with that. I used the example of Snow White and the 275 artists versus with new CAD tools, the 3,500 animators on Iron Man 3. We do more with the technology, but it does take learning. It does take adjustment. The automation stuff does bring a new shine to that, as does robotics. But I think both forces give us more latitude than we think, right? That we can get farther. What I'm really interested in is how do we really optimize human cognition? How does it actually start to contribute more and more to this? Because generative AI, if everybody starts using that and we stop contributing as humans to it, it is drawing on our experience. It's not generating its own logic there. So it kind of starts to peter out as far as the capability for problem solving and for doing difficult things. So those are just my humble ramblings.
Well, it's a great direction for the future in terms of, how can every one of the participants here or in our network can use AI to try to leverage their cognitive abilities to think about the next level. I think there are huge opportunities. I think it's the most exciting time in our kind of in modern history, with the capabilities of generative AI combined with conversational AI and others, in terms of really really making a fundamental change in the way we operate. And I think the biggest thing, in my view, what it will force us to do, will force us to change the mental models that we have of how we operate. Because you cannot just continue doing what we have been doing for the last decades. We have to start thinking differently in trying to address it. And that's the beauty, I think, of the changes we have to make.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I think everything is changing. Like the pace of change in technology, I bang that drum a lot, is that rate of change and the sheer volume of technology and change coming. I think we have to have things like generative AI and robotics to help us leverage those. The world is getting way more complicated. And so the ways we work are going to change drastically, like you just said, Jerry. It is the way we imagine what a company is, whether it's that one person company or whether it's a DAO, that doesn't mean everything ends for everything else. It just means a very different operating model. And with these tools, we have the capacity to do things that are just orders of magnitude more complex in their interactions. Think about the stock market from 100 years ago versus today. Today it's billions of transactions a second. I think we're still trying to understand what that means to be a digital business that's using all these tools, but it's going to be a wild ride.
Do you see any of the responses to the NASA challenges coming from individuals who combine their offer with AI?
It is a key question for us. They haven't self-identified that stuff yet, but I fully expect in the open innovation world that we're going to see better and better submissions coming in, because people are going to be able to research faster, come up with new concepts faster, put them in better formats and the rest as they learn to use the tools. But it's a good question. I think where AI can amplify human cognition is where we're going to see the biggest gain, right? So where it enables people to not have to spend all their time grant writing, but spend their time actually innovating. That's where we're going to get the power.
I think it's interesting because in the art world, there's a lot of criticism on, competitors who are introducing artwork generated by AI as opposed to by human. But I think in our field, we're talking about the cognition area here. I think it would be really almost nice to encourage submission by people who say, look, I'm submitting it, but with the support of this specific AI system.
Don?
Yeah, just really quickly, I wanted to touch on something Brian said, but first of all, Steve Radar needs to win the best background photo of the day awards. I want some of those, Steve. Those are good. But Brian, something you said present yourself as a much larger organization. I think we need to maybe reframe that and say, create the value of a much larger organization. Maybe it's not individual jobs that are threatened. Maybe it's the notion of large organizations that are threatened.
Absolutely.
Can we amend this? Create the value of large organization without the bureaucracy, without the kind of all the downside, the slowness and other problems of bureaucratic organizations. So it allows you kind of to create the value without all the baggage that a large organization entails, just because of the nature of bureaucracy.
Jay, did you want to share any gut reactions or insights or early findings from how you're using AI?
We have just starting our experiment, so we really see that it can disrupt this industry of recruiting and job search, because in the past, companies, they could afford recruiters to help them find the best candidates and outsource this routine work. But candidates, they could not afford this kind of technology. But right now, it's all possible. So someone can search a job for you in the background and parse all the websites and the culture of companies and try to find this culture fit that works for you. check the reviews, check what founders say, and trying to find your unique opportunity where you can like unlock your potential and match your superpowers. So we're doing a lot of experiments right now. I think I'll be able to share something maybe 1 or 2 months from now with the group.
Are you running experiments? Are you trying to run some real scientific experiments with certain approaches versus others so we can really learn from this?
Exactly. Yes, we are doing it with the real people, real companies, and check how it works. Can we outperform the normal job search and disrupt it and make it easier and more efficient for everyone?
Very cool. Thanks, Jay. Anyone else experimenting with some sort of AI and have some early findings or things you're considering?
Yeah, we're actually taking it in a little bit of a different direction. So we're partnered with Stanford and Penn, and we're doing a study on like what the threshold of AI tolerance is for freelance workers. So like how, like at what point do they think that it's too much? And it really comes from, we use a lot of systems to monitor and measure performance, but is there some like overreach threshold that you kind of reach? And so we'll be happy to share those findings when they come out, but it's been a really fascinating study. And I think that's kind of an area too that I encourage people to look as well, rather than just applying it, but kind of understanding what the market tolerance is for this before it, you kind of start to overstep some bounds.
Can you share with us the dimensions you're looking at in terms of the tolerance of the market? Is this from a productivity point of view? Is this from a personal satisfaction point of view? What are the dimensions you're looking at?
So the main one that we're looking at is around, it's kind of two, is that, so how do you feel about being algorithmically ranked? And then the second one is really around how do you feel about being algorithmically or really autonomously monitored? And is a performance score out of that something that you're okay with? Is it what you're cool with? And we did another study recently too that lended some insight into leveraging AI to monitor and rank. And it turns out, and this is actually a really interesting point to it, is that it turns out people are genuinely within a freelance group or a large crowd are actually okay with algorithmic ranking because it gives them an idea of placement in a social fabric when everyone's distributed. But they're only okay with it if they know what the rules are and how they're being measured. But what's interesting on the AI side is that you start to get to where there is an opaqueness into how the algorithm is actually learning and developing. So we're in a bit of like a juxtaposition of that. So it's gonna be fascinating to see how it comes out.
Have you measured also not only the feeling, the emotional part, but also, let's say, intention to continue working in the system versus, no, forget it, I don't want to be involved in this. So actually like a decision that they have to make as to, seriously, do I intend to continue with this AI system versus, no, I want to deal with a different system?
We haven't. No, that is a good question though. That is a really good question.
Yeah,
Just a simple question to the end of your research, in the intention to continue using or changing. We'll give you a nice dependent variable.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I'll write that down actually.
Gary can definitely help you with that on the research side of things. That's great. Anyone else as we wrap up here?
I have a question. So Jerry, 30 plus books, 50 plus years at Wharton. What keeps you going?
Fun stuff. Kind of when I was approached by the editors-in-chief of Management Business Review, said, would like you to edit for us a special issue. What topic would you like to do? I kind of was a great opportunity to identify topics I'm passionate about and believe in the future, which was not much research on at the time, and suggested. So the whole idea, actually, for correctness, I left Wharton after 50 years. So it's was exactly 50 years, which I should have done probably a few years earlier. But I just work on fun stuff, on things which I believe are important that I enjoy doing and the discovery. And it's such an exciting period. When you have a chance, read really, especially the paper on music, the implication to a field like music of using AI. The cover story, the cover picture, incidentally, of this issue is a cover from the artwork that Rafik Anatol, which is one of the kind of genius AI creators, that created it for the MoMA in New York based on 250 years of modern art. So that's a AI output of the MoMA's repertoire of art. It's on display now. So if you're in New York, make sure to stop at the MoMA first floor. You'll see tons of people there sitting. Typical viewing of a piece of art is what, 10 seconds? You look, you take another 3 seconds reading the label. Here people are glued and sitting on the stairs there looking at this piece of art. Similar AI and Anatol, Rafik Anatol is an amazing guy. He has an article in the issue. Prior to this, he did a performance together with the Philadelphia Orchestra where they played the Beethoven piece. He taught AI piece to understand the piece and to come with what they called hallucination based on the music. So concurrently with listening to the music, when we were in the audience, we saw in the background how the AI created this hallucination based on the music. Amazing capabilities, guys, in all areas. The most exciting period of our life. So just do what you're passionate about. That's the key.
Thank you, Jerry.
It's a great way to end it. I think that's why we're all here, right? Thank you everyone for being here, and especially folks who kind of shared a little bit more about how you're experimenting with some sort of AI. We really appreciate it and definitely want to hear more about what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. Definitely check back in with us next time. Our next community call is on Thursday, August 17th at the same time. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing your faces again soon. Thanks for today. And thank you, Jerry, for all your insights. We love having you here.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks all of you. Love your comments. Let's do it, guys. Let's augment all of the open talent with AI capabilities. We'll have a better world.
Love it.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.